he just very quickly grabs it and takes control of this. Now, I remember watching, I want to say it might be Folds, Officer Folds' body cam that was in there. And I remember there was a guy in the crowd, and he's wearing the 5.11 stuff like you're saying.
Yes.
And the gun falls. And I remember him kind of like holding people back.
Yeah, they were holding.
He goes, I lost my gun. And he's like, catches himself and goes, there's a gun.
Yeah.
So it looked like it was very conveniently just kind of placed down there. Barrier. Oh, look, there's a gun.
I'm not going to go into theatrics about that, but you don't lose all 3 items. And they also recovered a pistol, 9mm hollow point magazine, fully loaded. You don't lose the pistol in the waistband and then the magazine on top of each other in the middle of a crowd like that. There is no possible way. The gun will fall out first and everybody will see that, and then you back away. That's an in the waistband holster where they wanted somebody to pick that weapon system up and start deploying it before the end of the day so they could actually say it was an armed insurrection. And then I wonder what Captain Bagshaw did.
Who did he go to?
Oh, I remember. Yes. He found his commander up on one tier up, and he handed that thing off, didn't say a word. It was like some sort of understood nod or something.
Okay, and if you find a gun and I'm the assistant chief that's out there, and I'm your superior, right? And you come and give me a gun, I'm going to say like,
I'm like, oh my God, where did you get that?
What is this? Whose is this?
Yes.
No.
Where did you find that?
Camera shows, and I think we've probably got some footage of this that we'll show later, is just the transition from here to here.
Nothing.
It's
no words
like
spoken.
It's like
and he passed that off, and you never heard of it again.
This little trap didn't work. Just put it up. It was a plant.
We the people, right? They try to make it look like some patriot put it up there. But I don't know how many scenarios I've done within the waistband holsters. The gun will fall out. The gun falls out when you're getting out of the car. The gun falls out when you're getting in the car. The gun falls out when you're wrestling around. But the holster always stays. That thing is almost cemented to your side, and you have to pull it all out. But to find the holster and the gun married together is almost damn near impossible. You don't do it. The thing was a plant, and then they came up with a knife later on. That's Mox Nix. So the thing was a setup. Augustine, Bagshot, Tao, Tyndall, Chrisman, Haros, and the rest of them.
You keep naming these officers. It's funny. I just want to real quick say that, as I was doing my notes and stuff before, I kind of made a special sheet, and I don't know why I did it, but I put Goon Squad. And it's just, as I'm watching all these videos for months and hours and hundreds of hours, this list builds. It's Glover, it's Harrington, it's Augustine, it's Tao. This is before you and I.
This is before we came together, and the names are
Tyndall,
repetitive.
Riley, Bagshaw, Caldwell, Dockett, Bogner, Alito, Harrington, Volson, Folds, Forrester, McAllister, Exum, Horos.
When you start looking at their history and the things that they have done throughout their career in the MPD, you will see the repetition of the crimes being committed by these people and being covered up by the higher echelon.
A lot of these people belong to SOD, Special Operations Division within the MPD, and the DSO, which is the Domestic Special Operations. They're special operations for a reason. These guys are the same people who have been named in numerous lawsuits. Tyndall, Chrisman, Tao, Glover, and all the other lawsuits that we've looked at before. They're the
Hawkins.
same. It's the same people, the same divisions within the MPD. They have systemic issues. And I just wanted to kind of, we talked about it before, but I wanted to really kind of just, you and I on the same path, and I actually have Goon Squad, and we keep naming the same officers.
And look
keep
at the
that in mind.
Right, and look at the body cams, man. When you watch these things, these guys are disappearing for a while. They'll go downstairs, and they'll just hang out with their other officers. If officers were dying that day and people were being beat to death, why are these guys going downstairs to primp their hair or splash water on them? Oh, man, it's really crazy out there. We're having a good time. And that is on, Augustine's body cam footage. And Williams, where did Williams, or Smiley, even Smiley, after she got done puking green bile, she went downstairs, and that was the end of her for the rest of the day. And she went down there and started BSing with her friends. Oh, yeah, this is really amazing. Cell phone communications with their boyfriends. The list is endless. The female in the bathroom, they didn't even bother deleting her body cam footage. They put that on another guy's Discovery, and he showed that. Remember that? She goes into the bathroom. She's like checking herself, checking her bed. I'm like, what the hell is this?
Hold that thought.
Oh, my
We'll be
God.
back in just a few minutes. We'll get into that in another segment here later on. So we kind of left and we're talking about the fall of the West Terrace. There came a stance of, the tunnel became the stance of this was the final, I don't know how you'd say it. This was the final interaction between MPD, Capitol Police, and the crowd.
Right. I want to thank Captain Augustine once again for the fall of the West Terrace. Thank you, sir. You did a really wonderful job that day. So we're talking about the winding down. This is later on in the afternoon. There's so much information. It's unbelievable. And I'd like to get back to something really quick. I want you to fact check me. I want you to check my information. Everything I say is gospel. Dan and I together, we are biblical, man, and I want you to fact check us. And we're going to get into the tunnels right now and what happened with Ashley Babbitt. Roseanne Boylan and Ashley Babbitt, names that I will never forget as long as I live, because I watched their murder, their assassination on video. We'll start with Roseanne Boylan. We'll go
Roseanne
down
Boylan.
and then
Let's
we'll
go
work
to
up.
Roseanne Boylan. Let's talk about Lila Morris. So as we kind of talk about that,
officers involved. More.
We know they had gassed the crowd.
Yeah.
And people had become asphyxiated because you're in this tunnel and there's a lot of people and MPD's forcing out, crowd standing there, and you can't push back because the crowd just it becomes a push-a-war, not a tug-of-war, push-a-war. So Roseanne Boylan became incapacitated because of being gassed. If I'm almost certain that that's what happened.
Right. She was slightly heavy, maybe had an underlying condition or something like that. But the body can't handle that kind of stress for such a long period of time. I'm not a medic, nor am I a PA or anything like that. I used to be a communications geek, but I've seen enough people fall out from exertion countless times. And what happened, she went down. You could see on the video, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, you see her hands going up, and now watch this.
Blocking.
Officers close proximity or had a hand in it were Morris, Powell, Hodges, Fanone, Officer 1225, and there were two other. These notes I used to have, but the FBI took them. Thank you. So you see her hands go up. She falls to the ground. Lila Morris, once again, man, I bet if you fact check her and look at her history, she'll have cases up the wazoo of violence and lawsuits against her. Started beating this woman when she was on the ground, people protecting her, and the violence of action keeps going with the other officers kicking her.
So again, a use of force, an excessive use of force, because there was a stick that was provided, and she's beating Roseanne Boylan as she's laying down with a stick. And this is verifiable because Mac, there were several people that were in the C2B pod with us that were at that incident that triggered them to do what they did.
Right, they were standing right next to her.
So as we're looking at that, and you have multiple people who had the same story, J6ers, I was doing this, this is what I saw, what I saw. You start coming to this excessive use of force. But this was investigated. This incident with Lila Morris was investigated. It was investigated. And it's funny, you mentioned who? Our buddy?
Oh, let me guess. Once again, the fall of the West Terrace.
David Augustine of the Metropolitan Police Department.
Thank you, Mr. Augustine.
Said, during the investigation, quote, and I'm going to read this quote real quick. The use of force within this investigation was determined to be objectively reasonable. And this is the one investigation with Lila Morris and the beating of Roseanne Boylan with a stick. I don't know how that could be objectively reasonable.
This is the same officer later on that night on video talking about filing lawsuits against J6ers with Captain Bagshaw. Later on that evening, making false claims of PTSD, TBI, strike fear, sleep apnea, permanent body disfigurement.
So the use of force, it always comes down to use of force again. The use of force. And this wasn't the only thing. This was the fall of the West Terrace, and that happened there. But let's also talk about Ashley Babbitt and Michael Byrd.
Yes. So, real quick with Roseanne Boylan is that wonder why they burned the body so quickly. And they said that she died of a methamphetamine overdose. Where's the family? Where's the outcry? Where's the follow-on information. Where was it? They dragged the body into the back of the hallway like a rag, man, and then dumped her off. And then you heard, what was that officer's name that walked by? He's like, oh, is that one of ours? And they're like, no, that's a crowd.
He said F him.
Yeah, he's F him, man. Forget it, man.
So
Let's keep going.
This context is as you just said, I just want to clarify. They are still doing
CPR, just
compressions on
vague
Roseanne,
CPR.
minutes, and a long while past this. And this is
disgusting.
Police department officer who once at this time had bragged about, Lee, at least we got to throw some hands.
Yeah.
And anybody knows what throwing hands is, that's fighting. And the other officer, just real quick, kind of off tangent, but I had to say this, is he's on body cam. The other officer he's telling us to is like, oh, dude, don't do it, body cam. He's like, oh, F it, I don't care.
Do it.
Bragging about being able to punch other riders and bragging about it. So he's the one that walks by, sees them doing this, asks another officer, hey, is that one of us or is that one of them? And that officer said, oh, that's one of them. He's like, F it, and walks right on by.
Fact check it. So we're going to go into Ashley Babbitt. I met her mother one day, and that was a tear-jerking moment. And I watched the video twice, and that was enough for me to convince me that thing was set up from the get-go. And you had people breaking glass and stuff like that. You want me to go into theatrics? And so let's
stick to what this guy
all right
here.
So you see the setup. There was a hand and arm signal or a call that came out, and there were two officers standing on one side of the doorway, and there were other officers behind. If you are behind, once again, the line of officers, you get flex cuffed. But this wasn't happening because the door was there and you had people were breaking stuff.
You have two officers, Capitol Police, that are standing right behind Ashley.
Right, they're standing directly behind her, and more officers.
They disappeared.
They fell back because there was a hand and arm signal or a call came out, and you couldn't. And you're like, where'd they go? And all of a sudden, you see Michael Bird's hand come out, and he takes the shot and then retracts, moves back, starts calling for shots fired. Shots fired. I'm taking it. I'm taking the shot, And then why would you do that right afterwards? And that's when the SWAT team comes up the steps.
So you had two not SWAT protected, not plate carriers, not the windy helmets, not the protective gear that were standing there with just plain clothes Capitol Police that were standing there right behind where she was going to get shot. Conveniently exit the scene, right? The shot happens. Then you got ERT, who is fully decked out in full military gear, that show up.
Once again, if you have the upper hand with the personnel, why would you give up the high ground? He took the shot and then ran away and then made the call of shots fired. That is a cowardice act. That is an assassination. That is a triggering response by Capitol Police and MPD to force the crowd's hand into bearing arms into the riot. And they wanted it to go down that way.
You know,
but they showed restraint, and nobody had a weapon.
To the family of Ashley Babbitt, we honor her. We have for 4 years.
Tear-jerking experience, crying shame.
Mickey, we love you.
We love you.
And we're sorry to the family, to her husband, to everybody that knew Mickey. What a wonderful woman, and this was just a tragic incident. I just wanted to say that real quick.
I met you once when
I don't know
you
if you see those, but that's just huge goosebumps all over my room.
I met you once when you came to C2B to see me, and that was honorable. And you and I sat there, and I told you exactly what I saw on video. And I hope it brings anything to you. Man, that's tough, dude. That's tough.
I don't even know where to go after that one real quick. I mean,
no, neither do I.
I just really don't,
bro.
We still got a little time, but just, you know, again, as we keep saying, this comes back to use of force and training and communication. And, you know, after that, we kind of come to the end of the stuff in the segments that we've been honored to host, thanks to Donna, it's going to come down to, we really, really, really need to continue this fight. You know, the fight is not over.
We want to stay in it as long as we can, and we want to help, man. And we want to be questioned about what we saw and what we witnessed on video. It's unbelievable.
There's a lot there, and you know,
there's more.
We've had
more.
This blessing, this opportunity to talk to you guys, and there's so much more that we're not even going to get to today.
No, we
You know,
can't.
we
Just can't do it.
It's
man.
too much information, and it's